Well, this is huge news. Get it? Get it? Deadline is reporting that Legendary Pictures has just taken their upcoming film, Kong Skull Island, out of Universal Studios and over to Warner Brothers. The outlet claims that the reason for the move is that Legendary wants to have King Kong and Godzilla under the same studio to open the way for a future King Kong vs. Godzilla movie. The move to Warner Brothers won't change Kong's release date of March 10th, 2017, with the sequel to Gareth Edwards Godzilla planned for June 8th of 2018. John, what do you think of this move by Legendary, and are we actually going to see a Kong versus Godzilla film?
With the move to Warner Brothers, I have no doubt at some point we're going to see a Kong versus Godzilla film. Now, there's a few things that are going to happen to make that really possible, and I'm sure we'll get to that in just a little bit. It's a very interesting move. It's very good for Warner Brothers to pick this up, which I think is great. But this is surprising. Comic-Con was not that long ago, and Universal was touting, their upcoming Skull Island movie, with their stuff, and now it's gone. All I can think about, and I shouldn't just be thinking about this, but this is all I'm thinking about. Think of this in sports terminology. Imagine you heard that the Cleveland Cavaliers just traded LeBron James to the LA Lakers or something. Okay, that's great for LA. That's wonderful. But the next question you're asking, what the hell did they get? What did they get to give up LeBron James? I am wondering, what the hell did Universal get? Because Universal didn't just go, you know what? A King Kong versus Godzilla sounds like a good idea. You just take King Kong, because that sounds great. No way in hell that happened. I made a couple of calls this morning. I haven't heard anything back. I am dying to know, because that's the other half of this story to me. What did this involve? Now, King Kong is a property at Universal Studios, so maybe there's some extra cheese being given over there for the rights to for the park rights. Maybe Warner Brothers is going to have to give up a property of their own to Universal. Maybe it's like for future considerations. I don't know, but that's the part of this story I am incredibly intrigued about. Anyway, Clark, you heard about this. Your reaction to it?
Yeah, I think that this makes pretty good sense. I think shared universes are very popular amongst studios right now. They're all trying to get into that game. For me, though, and I think every point that you just raised is really smart, and I'm curious to figure those things out. The thing that jumped out to me first was the Godzilla movie that just came out last summer tonally felt very serious to me. It was a very serious Godzilla movie. And when I think of King Kong versus Godzilla, serious is not the thing that sort of jumps to my mind. I want to see King Kong versus Godzilla. My favorite scene in Peter Jackson's King Kong movie was when Kong battled the dinosaurs.
Oh, it was a great scene.
It's so awesome and badass and great. And so I want to see more of that. But I think that the King Kong franchise, as Peter Jackson introduced it, was much more playful and fun and had kind of a B-movie spirit. Whereas this Godzilla movie, none of those things I think apply. So what I'm curious about is how tonally you fit this King Kong and this Godzilla in the same world and have it still be a good time.
Christian?
It's an interesting deal for sure, because you're right. What it makes me think of is the Spider-Man thing with Marvel, because Sony was in trouble with that property.
Yeah.
Universal was not in trouble, not only with their property,
with anything.
They had $3 billion movies this year. So it is a matter of, we'll make a nice deal with you guys because this is going to benefit us this way. Now, the other thing is, too, you also remember that Legendary has a hold of these properties. So Legendary used to be at Warner Brothers. So they probably have a pretty nice relationship over there, too, can make some nice deals and you can see how that can, I'm sure with the theme parks and everything else, it all plays in, but it also gets me hopeful. Maybe some other franchises down the line can tie in if they have these kind of relationships. It's what we always kind of hoped with, well, what happens if the X-Men were able to go, because of maybe Fox, but Fox doesn't have this kind of relationship that Universal and Warner Brothers does. So who knows? I like it. I think it's smart. I think it's nice for the fans. I think it's a nice move by the studios, because if they both looked, this is a business. So if they both looked and Universal said, okay, this all works for us, and even though we might not benefit from the box office this way, we're going to benefit financially this way, then they're going to sign it over, and there goes Kong to Warner Brothers. Now, I just want to see, like Clark said, how are we going to make it work? We have to see, because my thing is, I actually like the last 10 or 15 minutes of Godzilla's movie because of examples that Clark gave. We saw Godzilla fight. We saw him rip faces off.
it was
it was
so awesome.
great.
That one shot when he pulls the thing's mouth out and then does his nuclear fire
Yes,
down.
and
Everybody in the theater, I was
loved
cheering
it.
at that.
And it was a matter. And I know, and some people, the comment that I got the most that I couldn't stand was, well, it was kind of like Jaws, to where they built it up and built it up, but it wasn't, because Jaws had a very different story with very compelling actors the whole way through and characters that you cared about the whole time. So by the time you got to Jaws himself, it was terrifying. Godzilla didn't need to be that. Godzilla was the star of the movie. Brody was the star of Jaws. So anyway, I want to see exactly what Clark said. What's the tone? And they got to make Kong way bigger if they're going to stick with.
Well, we were talking about that pre-show because, like, Kong, the way he's traditionally existed, and this is not going to be a sequel to Peter Jackson's Kong. I understand, so it's a different Kong, but the Kong that we've always got, including the one in Peter Jackson, he would roughly come up to Godzilla's knee in the way they scale Godzilla. So
this Godzilla would eat him.
Like it would literally pick him up and eat him maybe in 2 bites. Maybe in 2 bites. So you got to retcon a couple things. Either you got to adjust King Kong way up, or you got to shrink Godzilla about half. Or more, or a medium in between the two. I got to figure.
Maybe King Kong can team up with the Cloverfield monster, and they can take on Godzilla together.
Well, is it going to be a Batman v Superman type scenario too? Because
you have to think it would be.
Yeah, meaning that, like, because Kong and Godzilla are we both root for them. We root for them. So is it going to be they're going to kick the crap out of each other in the beginning, and then then we get some new monsters and they have to team up together, like that type of thing?
I want to see them doing high five.
Right,
do you remember that one Godzilla? Was it Godzilla and Mega Man? Or something like that, where it's the giant robot dude, and they had to tag team this other giant monster, and they were like high-fiving each other,
great.
and it's like, dude. But the other thing, the elephant in the room too on this, is there is another giant monster, giant thing property over at Warner Brothers, and that's Pacific Rim. So that's the other thing that comes up, because there have been a lot of whispers, I'm not going to say rumors, but there have been a lot of whispers that, who knows, maybe Warner Brothers has plans for Godzilla and Pacific Rim. If they are trying to bring up what you're suggesting, like a shared cinematic universe kind of thing, maybe the third in this gigantic threesome would be Pacific Rim.
Didn't Legendary start with Pacific Rim? Didn't they start?
Pacific Rim came out before
they left,
before
right?
Godzilla did.
Yeah. No, I just didn't know if, but Legendary was producing on Pacific Rim. No.
Yeah.
They were. Okay.
Yeah, that's a Legendary movie. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Well, by the way, just to interject, even if it's not Pacific Rim specifically, this has Guillermo del Toro written all over it. Yeah. And, he is very much a friend of Legendary, and I'm a huge fan of his, obviously. But can I just, put it out into the universe that if a Godzilla versus Kong movie happens, can Guillermo del Toro please make that movie? That's the movie.
It's funny you mention, because I could totally see a Guillermo del Toro. I know he's not, but directing a Kong Skull Island movie.
Yeah,
I couldn't see him doing a Godzilla movie. But you do a Kong versus Godzilla versus Pacific Rim, you're absolutely right. That has Guillermo del Toro written all over.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen, Internet. Let's use our powers for good and not evil for